Hello, hello, hello. I'm Heather Brzezinski. This is Monumented Millionaire. And I am joined, as always, by the lovely Laura Wright, who is epic at sales. Hey, Laura. How are you? So excited that you're here. And I know Stephanie's just on her way. She's always putting down the baby and things like that, and always has an appointment kind of right up to the point where we start. So she'll be popping on here any minute. And we're also joined here today by the lovely Carolina Schwarz. Hi, Carolina. How are you?
Hi, how are you, Heather?
Hi. Why don't you introduce yourself? Let everybody know who you are, what you do, and then we can get into the topic you brought for us.
Sure. My name is Carolina Schwarz. I currently live in sunny, not so sunny in the summer Miami. It rains every afternoon, but it's nice. And I help people start and grow successful businesses. And somebody recently gave me a thank you card, and it said something about dreams or something like that. So I want to say that I'm a dream maker because I help people overcome those obstacles that they actually put themselves into, and help them set up and grow their businesses. So that's what I do.
Awesome, awesome. So my cat's here to visit today. She appeared on the last episode, and she just busted in, and she's going to make an appearance again, apparently. So it's funny because she only comes to hang out with me when we're doing this show. She's like, all other times, she's one of those cats who are like, ew, you know? When we're doing this, she's like, oh, what are you doing? Let me be a part of this. Yeah. So funny. So Carolina, what's the topic that you brought for us today?
The topic that I brought today is wasting away at my job, a ticket paid with air miles, and the birth of my international business. So
okay, cool, all right.
And there's a connection to all of that. And I'm a storyteller at heart, so I always want to link things together and give you a little perspective in life, a little perspective on how things come about and what shape us and where we go and stuff like that. So this is the story, and this is basically the story of how my business came alive and where I'm at today, and the path that I took to get to where I'm at today. So the story goes, I want to say about 3 years ago, I was at my job. I was doing corporate marketing. And I've always loved doing marketing. I love copywriting, doing content development, strategy. That's my thing. The problem is that it was probably in the wrong place. So I'm at my office one day at my job, and my husband calls me, and he always calls me from the nicest places on earth because he's a pilot. And he calls me one day and he says, "Hey, how are you?" And the first thing that I said was, "Here I am wasting away at the office." That's what came out. And I remember holding the phone, and I'm like holding the phone, and I caught myself because I just couldn't believe what I had just said. And it was a moment where I caught myself off guard, and it came out. And at the time, I was in my mid-30s, and I've always been a go-getter. Whatever you want, you just go for it. You get it. You work through it until you achieve it. And I said, okay, there's something that needs to change here. So that's the wasting away at my job part, where I came to the realization that I was wasting away, and it was not a nice place to be. When you're in your mid-30s, you're totally capable of pursuing your dream, your passion. There's nothing actually stopping you but yourself. And from there, I started thinking about, well, what can I do about this? The immediate reaction, and I think it was like, our training or my training was, I need to get another job. If this one doesn't work, then I need to get another job. And you kind of go into this endless cycle of one job after another job after another job, and that's not the solution, So I started looking at different job postings and what can I do. And at that point, I'm like, you know what, it's not it. All the job posts look exactly the same. It was same place, same thing, different place. And I've always wanted to have my own business. I'm a very independent person. I find the drive in creating my own destiny. And at the time, because I was in corporate marketing, the one thing that I had available to me were air miles, free air miles. There was a trade show out of town that I wanted to attend, and I had air miles, and that's all I had. So what do? You just, I went up to my boss at the time and I said, listen, I really want to go to this trade show, and I'm telling you because I don't want to run into you, and I don't want to call in sick and run into you at the trade show. So I'm going to take 2-3 days off and I'm going to go to this trade show. And I knew nobody at this trade show. I had a list of people that were going to be exhibiting. And I grabbed my iPad. I did a little presentation on my iPad. I used my air miles. I got myself on a plane out of town. I went to this trade show. I introduced myself. Booth after booth after booth, I got probably 125, 30, 50, 200 no's, because who has time to listen to you? And that's how it started. You know, I went, do you have 5 minutes? Can I talk to you? Do you have 2 minutes? Can I talk to you? No, 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 no. And instead of getting disappointed, I was getting happier, because the more no's I got, the closer I was to my yes. And I finally got to one person and I said, do you have 5 minutes? This person said, I'm actually in between 2 minutes, but you can sit down and we can talk. We sat down and I secured my first international client. From there, that's kind of wasting away at my job, the free air miles, and the birth of my international business. 3 years later, the marketing company grew to have clients all over the world, places like Spain, Canada, Argentina, the United Kingdom, and throughout the United States. And that started by just me saying, there's nothing stopping me. I just need to go for it. And that's the topic of the talk today. You know, I want people to know that you can have the business that you want. You can find a way. I started with $300 in air miles. That's what it cost me to go to New York, and a lot of chickeness, because I just went booth by booth talking to people, and that's how it started, basically. The rest I figured out as I went along.
So there are some important things too that I think we can really draw from that story, because a lot of people, when they're starting off in business, it's actually funny, I got an email from a client yesterday, and one of the things that we worked on a lot together was spend less time doing things like blogging, and spend less time doing things like working on your website, spend more time actually talking to people, right? I mean, and this is the thing, so many people, they start their business and they go out there and they think, oh my gosh, I have to do all these digital marketing activities. Now, all those things are great. I mean, a blog eventually, yes, could bring you traffic, could bring you customers, but you need an awful lot of blog traffic to be converting into sales, right? And so that's a long-term project with a long-term goal. And when we're starting out, we need the short-term projects with the short-term money and the short-term goals, right, to be able to really start to turn that profit and to feel really good about ourselves, so that we can then outsource things like blogging, like social media posting, like, you know, all that kind of stuff, where it's like, you know, very, very time consuming and a smaller payoff. Sorry, Kat's like wagging her tail in front of my camera every so often. I keep throwing her on the ground and she's like, "Rah!" and then she comes back up. So I think that's really important, that, you know, to show that you went out and collected no's. And there's a great book. It's one of my favorites, called The Prosperous Coach by Rich Lippin and Steve Chandler. And Rich is one of my mentors. And they talk about the no game, and that's exactly that, right? That yes lies in the land of no, and the more no's that you go out and collect, the more yeses you'll get. And so going out there and celebrating the no's, I think, is a really awesome point that you brought up, right? But then there's this other side to your story of the, you know, wasting away in your job and things like that, and just really going out there and trying to get it. You know, and that's not for everyone. I believe that everyone can be an entrepreneur. I believe that it's something that can be learned, but I also believe that not everyone should be an entrepreneur, because not everyone wants this kind of lifestyle, right? Like not everybody. So some people just see the glamorous side, right? Where they're like, oh, you know, you can set your own hours and you have time freedom and location freedom and all these things. And yet, like, really there is the unglamorous side of it, of going out and getting 200 no's. Like, that is a huge killer to your ego. And you have to be able to be willing to do a lot of that mindset work and a lot of that ego work and a lot of that, you know, a lot of that work just to keep yourself sane, because that can really tear a person down, right? I mean, getting 200 no's for some people might crush them, right?
Yeah,
and so it's really important to know. Yeah.
Me too. And then they say, what do I do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to me, it was a matter of, it beats the alternative, because at the time, and a lot has to do with, you know, I've always wanted to get to a place of happiness, what happiness meant for me, you know, and I don't settle for in any of the things that I do in any aspects of my life. And it came at a point where, because my husband travels so much and because he's gone so much, there was this 1 month when I think we had dinner once in the entire month.
Yeah.
And that was partly because of his schedule, and it was partly because of my schedule. And it was mostly because it would take me an hour to an hour and a half to get to work each way. I'm commuting 2 to 3 hours every day. I'm leaving my house at 7 in the morning, going to work, coming back at 9 o'clock at night. And then the next day it starts again. And living in Florida, I would travel out of state, and when people see my driver's license, they look at me, and because of my paleness, they would say, "You really live in Florida? Because you don't get any sun." So seriously,
Me neither.
when they look at the driver's license and they go like this, and you're like, "You live in Florida?" But that's because you're stuck in your office and you're stuck in your car, and that's your life. And going out there, exposing myself, getting out of my comfort zone, which was very uncomfortable deep inside, the alternative of being stuck in my car for the next 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
I feel very strongly about this. I wrote a post on this the other day, actually, that when you said you create your own destiny, I couldn't agree any more than that. I think that every day we wake up, we have one thing in common, and it's how we have opportunity. So you can, you know, I pop out of bed every morning and I have this like thing that I'm like, I'm gonna crush it today. It doesn't even matter what happens, but I set this intention that for the rest of the day, whatever's gonna come along, whether it be good, whether it be bad, whether it be happy, whether it be sad, that I'm gonna crush it. Literally, I'm just going to put my game face on and I'm going for it. And I feel like this has allowed me to open up opportunities in my business that maybe some people feel like, instead of waking up every day and looking at the things that aren't good in our lives, why don't we pay attention to the immense amount of gratitude that we can have for the things that are working really well. And going back to the days of being corporately employed, I wouldn't change this lifestyle. I know it's super crazy and it isn't for everybody, but my God, is it so fulfilling? Is it so worth it? Heather, you talked about putting yourself out there and really engaging with people. I see my business will shoot up when I'm actually personally involved and engaging with people. And when I get kind of behind the scenes and I'm doing my thing and I'm not really necessarily putting myself out there, you know, it's still growing, but it's growing more like this. When I'm present and I'm showing up, it's like, poof! Like, it's like coming out of a cannon. And I'm like, holy crap, this is all I have to do. I just have to be present and available and adding value. And this is how I started my business. So I think sometimes as our business grows, we get away from that. But when we get pulled to go back to that place, like I had my best day a couple weeks ago. I've had my best weeks in the last couple of weeks, like ever. And it's simply because I'm showing up. But I also at this point set very clear boundaries. Yeah. So what I used to do a whole lot of things that weren't necessarily going to immediately affect the outcome. And now I say no to a lot of things. So it will at some point shift. But also I did in 1 year's time over 1,000 consultations. I pulled my calendar, my CSV from Appointment Core, shit doesn't lie, right? And I wanted to look at it because I actually wanted to re-engage some of the people that I had spoken to, reconnect with them, because maybe when we talked a year ago or 2 almost years ago, they weren't a good fit, but now maybe they're ready, right? So I pulled this list and I was blown. I didn't pull the list. I lied. My developer pulled the list. And when I looked at it, I was everybody's like, well, what did you do? What did you do? And I was like, I was clearly freaking present. Like, I was available. I gave a lot of time to people that maybe weren't ready, but in turn, look how my business has grown as a result. So I feel like we always have some way to kind of control the outcome. I'm super type A. I like to kind of be in control. Yeah. That's
so me.
Yeah. But like, I feel like we actually do have so much control over the outcome. When something is not going the way that you like it, well, check yourself before you wreck yourself. That's like my philosophy, right? Like, raise your hand, ask for help, whether it's personal problems and you need to go get a therapist. I did this. I struggled with postpartum, but I finally came out of it because I took action, because I didn't just settle for this being my everyday reality. I was like, no, this is not who I am. I need to get some help in this department. If I was having a lower than close rate on my sales calls, I hire a sales coach, Laura, to help me get it on the way. So I think it's really important to be said in this journey that understanding that being an entrepreneur is definitely not for everybody. It's definitely not for the faint at heart. There's going to be a lot of things that you have to overcome in this journey, but it's possible. It's possible. And if you just keep going and every day focus on the intention of the outcome, like really make sure that you know what you want to achieve in that day, that we can move miles together. We can move mountains together. And I think it's a really beautiful gift that we get to share. So action breeds results, and it's something that I do every single day in my business, regardless of what's going on around me.
And I think it's also important to acknowledge what happens when you get out of your comfort zone. And your comfort zone is kind of like a deadly space where you can be there forever. And, you know, the comfort of your 9 to 5, and as I call it, the pseudo fixed income, because they can come in at any time and then your income's gone in a minute, but you're in this comfort zone. And when people start their business, they're like, well, I'm going to go to networking events and I'm going to talk to a few people and I'm going to bring business cards and then I'm going to follow up. And that's what I've done. And it's a very comfortable space because you don't put yourself out there. You just go and hold a drink and you can stand there for 2 hours and not talk to anybody. Somebody once told me, the most incredible things that have happened in my life have happened whenever I did something that was, in my world, a little bit crazy. You know, for me.
Every day.
whenever, and I, it's true, but it took somebody else to say it. And when this person said it to me, I'm like, that's true. You know, I did this one thing in my life, which was out of my comfort zone, and I landed this new client, or I went out of my comfort zone one day and I connected with this person who opened up my mind to something else. I don't know, whatever it is. It's important that if you take this, if you're on this journey and you want to have your own business, you get out of that comfort zone, and that's where it's going to happen. I guess I wasn't really thinking that much when I was going through, I was going booth by booth talking to people. I'm like, no, yes. I mean, like, who would do that? But when you go through that, and then when I had it done, at the end, it was 2 days. At the end of the first day, I had so much energy that it was crazy. I was feeding myself with energy because, and it was my own energy from, I can do this. I just spent the entire day walking a room full of strangers. And I realized that all the no's that I had before going, they were up here. They were in my mind. You know, no, nobody's going to talk to you. Whatever excuses I was finding for not doing it, they were not real.
Yeah.
You know? And
I was gonna say, one of my favorite things about what you're saying is you just blended all the perfect things together by going and doing that intensively. There's this thing that happens, like when you want to go change your body, you cannot go to the gym for like 3 or 5 days in a row, just like go hard, like 24 hours a day, go hard. But you can do it with that. If you take a dedicated space, like going to a trade show and talking to a lot of people, blocking off time and speaking to like 1,000 people, hello. When you do that intensively, you can actually increase your curve and get to success faster. It's the only way you can do it when you pick up the phone and talk with people. That's what I always say. Like, if you want to have a business, pick up the phone and tell people what you want to sell and start to go for it. And when you go for it in a massive action, It's my favorite thing to do. I give my clients this 100 call challenge to go do like 100 calls in a really short amount of time. It doesn't even matter if you do the whole 100 calls. It's that it takes your learning curve up.
Tiffany just realized that she did the 100 calls that she did.
Well, you're like the best one. Numbers. But when you get yourself there, that's what you experience at the trade show. Like you went out and you got yourself in motion. So by the time you spoke to that last person, it was just flowing for you. And I'm also a really big fan of like the big thing lifts you up. I always talk about epic goals. When you set something way bigger than yourself, like you did not go to a trade, you went to a trade show out of state. You didn't go to like a networking meeting with 10 people and hope you got something. You went and did something that was monumentally bigger. You also put yourself out of your environment. Anytime I want to do something, like this afternoon, I'm going to go hang out at the Four Seasons by the pool, because why not? But also, why not? I need to go somewhere else because I've got a big goal I want to create. So while my office is amazing and I love being home and I'm comfortable, when I want to do something different, I physically change my environment. And so you just caught those. You changed your environment, you did something massive, and you got in connection with people. Like, no wonder. And the cool part is, if you do the massive thing like once at the beginning, you get better at it. So the next time it's even easier, and the next time it's even easier.
Yeah, and you continue eroding these thoughts that you have self-imposed, you know, and like the excuses, because they're like, okay, who's gonna tell me I can't do it now? I did it. You know?
True, yeah. Well, something else kind of that I heard you say though, when you were talking about the comfort zone and you were talking about all of these thoughts that you had in your head and how, you know, they weren't real before you went. I think it's really important also to think about, you know, I think we all sort of sit there and we kind of think, okay, we're going to get to this place where we feel really confident in everything that we do, or we feel really comfortable in everything that we do. And we have this story, right? Like we have this story that like, oh my gosh, once I make $100,000, then I'm going to be really, really confident each and every day, or whatever it is. And so, you know, it's funny because that never actually happens. Like the story in your head just changes from one piece of bullshit to another, right? Like all of a sudden, you know, okay, it goes from you're not good enough to, oh my gosh, now I'm serving all these people. Well, what if I let them down? Or what if, you know, this or that? Like there are a million different stories that your brain can concoct. And so that's are things like, you know, even meditative practices. And it doesn't have to be pure meditation where you're sitting there, but there are elements of meditation that allow you to really let go of your thoughts and allow them to pass through. If you've ever used the app, what is that called? Headspace. So Headspace is a great app. They have the Take 10, which is like the free series that you get before you have to subscribe to it, right? But he has these cute little animations that really outline what meditation looks like. And one of them is of sitting by the side of the road and having all of these cars pass, and you're just watching the cars, right? And so the cars are your thoughts and allowing them to pass through your mind. And he said, but what most people do are they run out into the traffic and they try to stop them and they say, you're a negative thought, I'm going to stop you, right? And then you get hit by that car, and then you run out into the street and you're like, oh my gosh, you are a thought that's holding me back. I'm going to try to stop you. You can't really stop your thoughts from happening, but you can allow them to pass through. And so, you know, I think that's a really great lesson for everyone to learn, especially when you're being held back by these thoughts, because, you know, we feel like they're going to go away, but they never, ever, ever do. It's just called being human.
But if you act in spite of them, right? Like,
absolutely.
I always say that, like, you know, this thing with fear is a made-up emotion. The only power that fear has is the power that we choose to give it. It's not that Warren Buffett didn't have fear. It's not that Oprah didn't have fear. It's not that everybody in the world that has accomplished great levels of success doesn't actually still have fear. It's just that they act in spite of it. So, you know, whatever is challenging you for that day, if you act in spite of it, I promise you, like, those fears, like we talked about public speaking, those fears will start to diminish.
Yeah.
You know, they'll no longer even exist. So you have to continue to take action. I think it's the biggest thing that we can do every day is take one step forward. Just one step every day. I think we get so obsessed with well, how is this big goal really possible? And it's like, well, you don't have to focus on that right now. You just have to take one action every single day to put you on the path in the right direction. So I actually included this in my group this morning because it's something that I do for myself. I make a vow to myself every morning. And I make a vow saying that I'm going to be a better person today than I was yesterday. So that's how I gauge my success. It's not based on actually the number of new clients I get in a day. It's not actually based on the number of sales. And maybe this is completely wrong. But for me, I need to feel as if I was successful in a day. And if I feel that I did better today than I did yesterday, but then I'm successful. And whatever that means, better as a mom, better as a business owner, better as a friend, better as a person, whatever, better health-wise. Maybe I made a better decision with what I ate today. I did better today. For me, that defines success.
Yeah.
And I think people get really caught up on someone else's success story even sometimes. And that will bring you down, that will hold you back, that will kill your vibe. You just got to base it off of how you feel as a person about what happens every day. And if every day you show up and you know you're doing your best, I think you can classify that as success.
Yeah. So I've been really studying happiness, and one thing that has come up time and time again is that you naturally compare yourself to the others around you, and that can really affect your happiness. And it really comes back into how we place we compare our own success to the success of other people. And so, you know, some of the studies have shown things like when you live in an affluent neighborhood, you are less likely to be happy because you're constantly comparing yourself to other people. So if you live in the smallest house in the nicest neighborhood, right, like you're never going to be as happy as the person who has the largest house in kind of a shitty neighborhood, right? Because you're comparing yourself to the people around you, and this is a really natural thing that we do. And it's not necessarily something that we can control, although we can definitely recognize that it's happening and sort of say, well, this is stupid, and allow that to pass, right? But what we can't do is we can't change the way that we're sort of hardwired to say, you know, actually put ourselves in that situation. And so it's really funny because we live in this online space as well. And in this online space, there's a lot of people shouting out how much money they made on their launch and, you know, this and that. And you go, oh my gosh, like, you know, I had a launch and I only made this much. So I'm a giant failure because I've been doing this longer than them. But you don't know. I mean, I've seen people who've had $1 million launches, but they spent $250,000 or so on ads. So if you don't have $250,000 to spend on ads, or you're spending $500 on ads, like, the whole story isn't there, right? And so it's really important for us to kind of sit back and, like you said, Stephanie, compare you to you, compare you to the day before, right? Because you'll never, ever, ever be happy. And in fact, you'll erode your happiness if you're constantly looking to other people's success stories to inspire or encourage your own success story.
And I think it's really important to work on your mindset. It's really important to be aware of all these things that we're talking about, but it's equally important to have a strategy in place that's going to work for your business and to have goals. Because I could have happily gone to that trade show and said, yes, done, client, that's it, I can retire, I did it. Well, you know, the point was, and I actually made connections for many other clients, and that's kind of how the ball got rolling. But I could have said that was the purpose, but then I had a plan, and I had goals, and I had a strategy for my business, and what I wanted to do was very particular to me, to my skill set, to my desires, to what I wanted to do, to my where I saw myself. I was very clear that, for example, I didn't want an office. I was very clear that I wanted to work with international clients because of my background, because of my personality, because of my skills, whatever. I was very clear about the kinds of things that I wanted to offer, and I crafted my strategy based on that. And I held myself accountable. And a lot of people also fail in that second part of your business, where they do all the mindset work, or they're really committed, but there's no plan of action. And they start following a lot of people online, and somebody says, today I tried this and it worked for me. Okay, so this week I'm going to try what that person said. And then that week it didn't work. So next week they're like, okay, I tried that. That didn't work. This week I'm going to try this other thing. And then you start jumping all over the place, and nobody sees any results. And okay, what's happening? Well, what's happening is if you go to the gym one day and then you don't go for 5 days and then you go again, going back to Laura's.
You know, the gym works for everything with business.
Yeah, the gym is perfect. I went to the gym once and I didn't lose any weight. How is it possible?
Work.
But I've been going for a month. I've been going for a whole month, and you see results, right? Like, if I gave up after the first day, it would be like, now I'm like, yeah, mama.
That's the thing, though. Like, you've got to push yourself out of the nest. Like, not to give too many analogies in this, but like, once you get yourself in motion, don't also rely only on yourself to stay in motion. Because, like, leaving a job, I think, especially, or starting a new venture, yes, it requires you to get started, but I think part of what, I can speak for myself, but I think everybody else here, part of what helps me stay going is that I'm not doing this alone. Like, I have a support network. I have not just colleagues, coaches, mentors, a team. Like, I got myself into a support network, so if I do start to feel uncomfortable or swirl, I reach out, I get myself leveled up again. It's just your responsibility to get yourself going. So if you think that the hill is too high to climb, like the leaving your job or trying something new, just get yourself to take the first step and make sure you're surrounded by support.
That still actually goes back to the gym analogy.
Everything, trust me. You'll think on this for the next week or so.
Because I hired a trainer because I know the type of person that I am in regards to going to the gym. I actually hate the gym. I hate it so much. It's not even funny. I only run when I'm chased. Like, but I wanted it badly. I wanted to get back to myself after having a baby. I wanted to feel better energetically. I wanted to sleep better. I wanted to fit in my clothes again. And so I was determined and committed, and I knew I couldn't do it alone. So I did ask for help. And it's the same in regards to building a business. Like, if something's not going right in one direction, it's called raise your hand and reach out to your network and see who around you can help you so that you don't have to deal with this alone. Because the truth is, as entrepreneurs, which was to my demise in my previous business, I sat behind the struggle. I never talked about what I was experiencing. And once I actually put my voice out to the world and said, hey, has anybody ever felt paralyzed or overwhelmed or completely fearful of their own business? And like hundreds of people showed up. I was like blown away. I was like, I guess I'm not alone here, right? So whatever you're going through, there's probably 1,000 at least other people that are actually experiencing the same thing. But if you don't talk about it, you're not going to get relief or the results that you want to, and it's going to lead to this stuff up here that's this game that it continues to play on repeat, right? And so we get the craziest place that we can ever be is right here, actually. Like, scary, like, you know, and just, it's not that it stops happening at any given point, right? So when we were talking in terms of comparison, I mean, who here has ever played the comparison game? And it's a trap. It's just a shitty trap. And then you realize, like, and now I'm at the point in my life because I've seen what it's done to me before, and I'm like, why am I going there? Like, shut this shit off. Like, I have nothing to compare, right? And it's the God's honest truth. And as long as you are just very simply trying to be better every day for yourself, for your family, for the people around you that are closest to you, and it has nothing to do with what the rest of the world is doing, you're being successful. That's what I think breeds success. So, you know, whoever's here watching, I feel like keep going, you know, like if you really are determined to build something, to leave a legacy, to leave an imprint, to share your purpose with the world, or maybe just 10 people and maybe you haven't gotten there yet, keep going, because every single one of the women that's here today and a lot of other people that are out there, we've all been in the same situation where there's been moments where we've questioned our own sanity in regards to being an entrepreneur and building businesses. And it even comes when you make it to the next level. It's still come back in another capacity, and you got to be willing to put a different hat on that day and say, okay, I'm ready to do this. But keep going and definitely, you know, ask for help. I'm such a huge advocate for asking for help. I couldn't tie my shoes without my team.
And when you ask for help and you get the help, do the work.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God, that's the most important thing that was said to me. Ask for help, especially from someone you trust or knows what they're doing. Do what they say. Like, I mean, but do what they say.
Yeah. And don't use the excuses, right? Yeah.
All the courses, I've done all the webinars, and one day, one of my favorite phrases is one day when. Mm-hmm. One day when I have the time, and one day when I finish reading, or one day when, whatever, one day when, just don't go out today, don't go out this weekend, and that's your one day when. You know?
I actually had this conversation with an entrepreneur yesterday. I actually went on a date, and he's a pretty successful entrepreneur. And we had this conversation. He's saying that when people come to him to make investments in their business plans, right? So they come with a business plan, and they go, well, "What do you think?" And he goes, "I think you should try it out." And they go, he gives them some tips, and they go back and they tweak the business plan, but they never actually put the actual business plan into motion. So then a month goes by, and they come back. And they go, "So I tweaked the business plan. So what do you think?" And he goes, "I think you need to go out there and try it, you know?" So they come back, and then a month goes by, and the business plan is still sitting here. And he's like, "At this point, I'm not reading it anymore," because I'm like, "This is ridiculous. Did you go out there and try it?" And they come back. So I think, like, I'm like, that's so funny you say that, because in my previous business, I had this plan that was like what I thought was going to be like, you know, how it was going to be. And my business resembled not an ounce of that plan, by the way. And then this business I fell into, literally, I just put my wheels into motion. I just started moving. I just started showing up. I just started doing what I thought I should do. I didn't even know what I should be doing, but I was just showing up and being visible and adding value or whatever. And then I was getting these results that were like blowing me out of the water. And I had no freaking business plan. I didn't have business cards. I didn't have a website at the time. I didn't have an opt-in. I didn't have an email list. I had myself and I had the internet. And I was showing up. And that's it. And I felt pretty confident knowing about what I had experienced, and I had transformed my own life, that I felt that I could help others, because I had done the inner work, right? So I just started showing up, and all of a sudden, here I am, just a couple, not even months down the road, building this business that this other business, I would have never even got there with this strict plan. So it's just like, you know, sometimes the road that's not, like, less traveled, right? Or like the journey, it's the one you should probably be going on. I was pulled into this direction, despite of my circumstances, despite of my current realities. I was being drawn in a new direction. And actually, the mentor I worked with at the time, he wasn't a fan of me moving into this space at all whatsoever. But something inside of me was like, "Oh no, I'm doing this." And thank God.
You shouldn't, and she's gonna do it twice.
Yeah. And that's exactly how your inner self said it too. Like, I can just picture Steffi's inner self, right? Like, "Oh no."
"Oh no, we're doing this. I have no idea how. I
So
got
funny.
a load of debt, so hold on, because here we go."
Yeah. I think it's really, really interesting how it seems that our society, or maybe just the kind of the people that we hang around online or whatever it is, that we get addicted to self-development, but we get addicted more so to the concept of self-development. We get addicted to the learning, but not to actually putting it into play. And I came across a really interesting statistic. I was listening to Seth Godin's interview on Tim Ferriss's podcast. It was a few months ago. It was back in maybe February, but I hadn't watched it, and I really love his stuff. And so I was like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to catch this. It's like 2 hours long. So it was quite a commitment, but I was in the car. I'm going to do it. All right. And he mentioned this really interesting statistic, and that was that the incompletion rate for online courses is 97%. 97% of people who buy online courses do not finish the entire course.
Wow.
It blows my mind.
Wow.
And so I was just like, what? Like, this is crazy, right? And it sort of, for me, in creating an online course, I was like, wow, like, I need some sort of accountability system to make sure that people are putting this into action. But it didn't surprise me at all, because how many conversations have you guys had with other entrepreneurs who have said, well, I'd really like to do this, but I bought this other thing that is still sort of sitting there, and I feel like I need to do that first, right? Or how many of us have had conversations with potential clients where, you maybe give them a call to action, right? And so something that I always do when I'm enrolling a client is I test their yes. And so it's funny because it's kind of counterintuitive to the sales process. I should get a yes and just be like, yay, money, and move on. But I test the yes because the relationship is so important in coaching. And so I'll send them off with homework, and they need to complete the homework. And it is astounding how often somebody is willing to give you thousands of dollars and they never do the work.
Yeah.
And then it's say, if you're not going to do the work, we're not going to get started. And I get a few people a month at least who are like, yes, 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 give me the contract. And I'm like, hold on, because here's the thing, like, I'm going to give you all of this. You're never going to put it into action, and then you're going to blame me, right? And so I don't want that in my business. Like, I want to make sure that you're getting results. And so I test that, yes, and it's just incredible. And it's always, I don't have the time. And then they'll come back and they'll say, okay, maybe you're right. Maybe we should do this in a few months. And I'll just say, well, if it's not a yes, it's a no. You know, so if it's not a yes, if it's not 100% yes, it's a no. It's not a maybe later or whatever. And maybe later is a better time, but we need to completely revisit it at that time, because something needs to change in your life, and you're never going to get more time. Like, time is freaking finite. Like, time, you're never going to get more time. And so
don't you think, Heather, don't you think that it has to do also with people's own, like, stories, what's going on, what's stopping them? And I don't have time, to me, you know, it's never about the time, and it's never about the money.
We're all moms. If we have the time,
I'm not.
believe me. Well,
I don't have an excuse.
You're a dog mom. You're an animal mom. But
I am.
It's when it comes to time, I'm like, give me a freaking break.
Yeah.
Never about the time. It's never about the money. I don't have time for that.
Raise a baby, still go to the gym, still build a business, still have time for go on a date, still have time for my friends, still travel, still do a bunch of really cool stuff. What? You don't have the time?
Yeah.
Oh, you better make the time if you
want. I'd rather be miserable than make the time for it. That's what I hear all the time.
Yeah.
You know,
it's uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. Then you talk to somebody a year later, 2 years later, and you're like, oh, what happened to that idea that you had? It's still an idea. It's coming. It's coming. Just wait for it. But I think
just wait for it.
Well, but that's what you get. I've had so many conversations like this. Yes, I love what you're doing. I'm going to do it. And then 5 years later, you have this conversation with that person, and they're stuck in the same place.
I think that's a good question to ask people. And sometimes I'll be like, if the time issue comes up, I'm like, okay, well, I want you to think for a second. What are you going to feel like in 3 months or maybe 6 months from now if you're sitting in the exact same position you're going to feel right now, where you are right now? You're going to be miserable. Who wants to sign up for that? Do you have the time now? Like, come on. Like, I mean, sometimes you need to just change it around in the way that their head is perceiving that they don't have the time, because actually we can make the time for whatever is important to us. It's clear. I've made a lot of excuses in the past that I didn't have the time to go to the gym. I have less time now than I ever had because I'm a mom full time, obviously, but I still have time to go to the gym every day. So what?
I think it has to do with whatever fears people have. Fear of, okay, now I'm going to have to get myself out there. I'm going to have to put myself out there, or I'm going to have to get organized, or I'm going to have to get my shit together, or whatever.
Actually, it all boils down to willingness.
Yeah,
you have to be willing to do what must be done to get what you want. And so when someone gives you any sort of excuse, all that it means is and it's not even will. I think sometimes when I say willingness, what I also mean is it's their belief that it's going to happen. And so I like to tell people that really all you need to believe is enough to get started. And then again, surround yourself with people that keep your belief growing. Because I think the other thing that is, when you have a big idea or something you want to do, something big like leaving a job or creating a brand new program, sometimes the bigness of it, if you can't see how it's going to happen and know that it's going to happen for certain, that's why, like, this might not make any sense, but like my kind of goals are just like, here's the amount of money I want. Here's kind of a thing I think I want to do for that money. And then I just start getting emotional and talking with people, and half the time it never looks like this. I mean, I don't like a business plan.
It never looks like that.
But like to stop yourself because you can't see the whole path, that's why I really like to encourage when I'm talking and working with my clients to like get to the yes for right now. Because if you can get there, you can keep going. And if you're really not willing and ready, run the other way. Somebody just put out recently if it's less than 100% yes, it's actually the same if you were 10% committed or 90% or 99% committed. That one little last percent or 10% is the same as if you're not committed at all.
Absolutely. I think we talked about that in a past episode. Yeah.
It's really important.
Well, I think that too. So you say willingness. I think it's also commitment. And it's not commitment to your goal, right? Like we're all to some extent committed to some idea, or to some goal. And that's why the idea lives in our head forever and ever and ever. But it's what we're committed to. We may be more committed to the fear. We may be more committed to the money. We may be more committed to the idea that we're busy, right? We may be more committed to the comfort of hiding behind our computer and not talking to people and convincing ourselves that this is going to work, right? Like there's sort of this, what are the thoughts that you're committed to? That's the thought train that you're going to follow. And so it's funny because, you know, we are all in the business of really that self-development. We're in the business of business development and really helping people to shift. You know, I always ask people, what is your impossible dream? What is something that, and when people give me their impossible dream at first, they almost always give me something that's really, really possible. And I say, is that really impossible? And they'll be like, well, no, I can see, I have a plan to get there. Well, okay, cool. What's your actual impossible dream? Like, what is something that you would never tell anyone because you're like, this is stupid. There's no way I'm ever going to do this, right? And I'm like, that's what we're going to go after, because all of the other things are going to come into place. And that's going to really help to shift your mind into like, oh my gosh, if I go after this thing, knowing that I'm probably never going to get it because it's quote unquote impossible, all of these other great things happen in the meantime. And it's all of these other smaller goals that you mentioned, right? And so it's really cool to kind of see that transition, but it's amazing. And I encourage everybody to go out and ask people this question and hear the answers that you get back when you say, what is your impossible goal? And they'll be like, you know, to make $100,000 in a year. And I'm like, okay, well, how much did you make last year? 75. And it's like, okay, that's not impossible. Like, that's not a stretch, right? Like, let's get on this, right? And so it's funny, Stephanie, you were mentioning mom, and I don't have kids. I'm not planning on having kids. And so I always tell this story of, I have one client, she has 7 kids, and she had 3 jobs because she was a single mama of 7 kids. And like, they were all under the age of 12. Like, it is insane. So not even old enough really to help, right? Like, we would be on coaching calls. She'd be cooking dinner, have a baby in each arm. She'd like have her phone like this, right? Like, and she would just be laughing a lot. And she does everything. And she took action on everything with 3 jobs and 7 kids as a single mama, no nanny, no help, like crazy. And she built a virtual assistant business from the ground up and was able to replace the income of all 3 jobs. And so she created more time in her life by spending a little bit of extra time here and there. And I mean, she was building her business 5 minutes at a time. And I think we might have talked about this before, about the 5 minutes at a time, but really and truly, like, there are times I loved interior design when I was in marketing. And I was like, I don't think this is ever going to be a thing, but maybe I can make a couple extra $100 here and there, right? And this is before I walked out of my job and said like, okay, bye, I'm out. And then I went, oh shit, I have no money and no plan and no business and no anything. But I built, as I was sort of doing that, I was working as a hobby 5 minutes at a time. And I can remember one of my employees saying to me, like, you're so much happier when you're talking about interior design than when you are like here with us. And I was like, oh yeah, right. And it was shortly after that I was like, okay, bye Felicia, like I'm out, right? But I mean, at that point I had a blog and it wasn't getting really any views, but that was built literally. Sometimes I'd be on my BlackBerry for work and I would have my laptop sitting over here and I'd be like finding pictures and doing blogging and whatever else. So 5 minutes at a time is all you really need to push yourself forward.
And maximize your time. You know what I used to do? It was taking me an hour and a half to get to work in the morning because of the crazy commute, the rush hour traffic. If I left my house at 7:10 in the morning, it would take me like an hour and a half to get to the office. If I left my house before 7, I'm talking 10 minutes different, it would take me 20 to 30 minutes to get to the office. So I knew I had to come up with a plan. I knew I had to do something systematic because I couldn't come up with more hours in the day. So I created this spreadsheet and I typed in leads that I wanted to reach out to. Going back to Laura's point, grabbed my phone, and what I did was I decided to leave my house every day at 6:30 in the morning. Once I had decided to start my own business and I was working my transition plan, I printed out my spreadsheet and I would leave my house half an hour earlier. And then I would sit in the parking lot before going into the office, pull up my phone, and Skyped people because I was trying to reach people. I said, okay, at that time, what
Art.
I started reaching out to people in Europe because to them it was already noon. So
Right,
totally
makes sense.
fine to reach out to them. That's what I could do because of the time difference, you know. And that's how it started. Every day it was that half an hour, 45 minutes extra time that I saved by leaving 20, 30 minutes before, sitting in the parking lot. Everybody would arrive at the office at 8 in the morning. I'm sitting in my car with my spreadsheet and my phone, you know.
Awesome.
And then I would take my hour break at lunchtime, and I would go to Dunkin' Donuts with my computer. So that's an hour and a half that I just created every day to work my business. And I just need to find a way around it.
Yeah. I challenged a client one time. She came to me. She was very, 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 very miserable. She was working corporately. She had been building her business on the side for 3 years, I think it was. It was making under $3,000 a month. I think like actually around the $2,000 a month mark. It wasn't making enough money. She didn't feel confident leaving her corporate business. And then she was telling me, I have no time. I said, you'll get up 10 minutes earlier if you really want this. You'll take a shorter lunch if you really want this.
Right.
You'll make calls in the evening on the way home on Bluetooth if you really want this. You'll go to bed 30 minutes later if you really want this. And I changed her perception around that I don't have the time, and she closed like $3,300 worth of new business in 48 hours.
Crazy.
So once she realized, oh, wait a minute, this is an excuse about I don't have the time. I can actually create the time by managing some things better in my schedule during the day. I'm not asking you to be absent during your corporate job. No, I'm asking you to wake up 10 minutes earlier. I'm asking you to use your Bluetooth on the way to work. I'm asking you to take a shorter lunch break until you feel confident about the number of people you're talking to, whatever that looks like for you, to be able to walk away from your corporate job. And since we had that conversation, she put in her resignation with her boss because he did gain the confidence that she needed, and it was whatever she needed. It looks different from everybody, right? In order to feel good enough about, okay, I can do this now. I can walk away. I'm a risk taker, so for me, I didn't have any plan. But that's not for everybody, you know?
So we do need to wrap up. We're heading into an hour here. So Carolina, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you if they want to get to know a little bit more about you?
Sure. They can find me online at carolinaschwarz.com, which is my website, and in there you can connect with me on Facebook at Carolina Schwarz, and LinkedIn, C Schwarz, actually very easy to find because it's my name everywhere. So, and I'll be happy to connect with everybody. I'm now on a mission to helping people achieve their own dreams because honestly, it all started with with a ticket paid with air miles. So, and getting up, you know, not even getting up earlier in the morning, just utilizing the time differently. So, and an iPad. That was my business card. I have my iPad with my presentation, so anybody can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys want to catch past episodes, or even if you want to catch up on this one, if you join halfway through, you can do that at monumentummillionaire.com. And that's where you can find out information about myself and Stephanie and Laura as well. You can follow through to our social media pages and to our websites right there. So thank you so much, Carolina, and thank you, ladies, for being here today. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. That is the awkward moment when I go to get out of the record.